Well, pleasant good morning, sports fans, and welcome again to another edition of the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the BallFather Podcast presented by Sportskeeda. I'm Reggie Roberts, longtime NFL communications executive, sports observer, and today we've got a special treat, being that for all intents and purposes, it's baseball season. Okay, the Super Bowl ended last night. Big game's over. It's in the history books. Get rid of the decorations. Finish off the last piece of the chicken wings. Throw out the guacamole dip. Okay, it's time today to break out the bats, the caps, the gloves, the hard balls. It's baseball season. And to kick off our baseball coverage on Sportskeeda, we've got a special guest for you. We're talking about a guy who is a walking baseball historian, very connected, not only in Atlanta where he lives, but all over the league. He is a baseball aficionado. He's an expert. He's entertaining. And more importantly, he's my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, say good morning to Chris Dimino. Chris, what's up, man? How we doing, buddy?
It is all good, Reggie. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Hey, listen, thank you so much for joining us. We know you got your own show today, and pitchers and catchers are reporting this week, and I think you were telling me, Nick, either this end of this week, next week, you're going down to see the Braves get going.
Yep.
Give us a little prospects of, because I'm still a little mad about what's going on in Atlanta, okay? For the second consecutive year, the Braves have let an icon walk out the door. Freddie Freeman walks out the door.
Yeah.
Now Dansby walks out the door. What's the feel for the fans in Atlanta, and more importantly, who's going to replace Dansby at shortstop?
Yeah, so that's the $64 question, is who's actually going to physically be standing there. There's a young guy named Vaughn Grissom who they brought up last year to play second base because Ozzie Albies was down, which, by the way, the addition of Ozzie coming back, hopefully healthy, and with the new rules that I'm sure we're going to talk about, boy, it's certainly set up for Ozzie to have even a bigger year offensively and a bigger impact. But Vaughn Grissom, I think, is the guy that's penciled in, but it's not named. I think everybody learned during the pandemic, put your pens down, start writing everything in pencil, because you're going to need an eraser at the end, and that's life, and that's sports, and that's life. I personally don't think he's the answer every day, and I know that Ron Washington, one of the coaches, the infield guru around here, who's one of the best. Reggie, you would love Ron Washington.
I know Ron. I know Ron. When the 2 years I worked at Disney, I was in charge of the Braves over at spring training at the ESPN Wild World Sports Complex at Walt Disney World Sports, and I got to spend a lot of time before games talking to Ron. There was another guy who's the kind of thicker guy around the middle, the first base coach. What was his name?
Eric Young.
Eric Young. I spent a lot of time with him, but Ron is the best. Smart, knows baseball. He is the best.
He is one of those guys who, there's no smoking rules, as in you can't smoke anywhere, it seems, in America these days. Ron Washington doesn't give a rip. If I had $1 for every heater I've seen that guy light up, he just drags on a stick. He's funny. He's honest. He's old enough now where, quite honestly, he doesn't edit himself. Now, we did something on YouTube for the radio station. I did about 5 sit-downs with him. We got into everything. And it was so funny. Like, after the second one, I was like, I wonder if he doesn't realize you can use whatever language you want. We're on YouTube. I think he was thinking radio rules and trying to help me out. But real good guy. So he's the infield guy. And he's been working with Vaughn Grissom. Vaughn Grissom's gone down in New Orleans, where Ron lives during the offseason, 3 different times. He looks the part. His feet aren't great. His arm isn't great. So they're just trying to figure out, look, at the end of the day, I can hit you 90 as long as you pick up everything you're supposed to pick up. If you can work out the double plays, especially with the no shifts this year, it's going to be interesting to see shortstops around all of baseball. And losing Dansby in that regard is a big part of it. That guy played as good a shortstop as anybody in the game last year. So now I'm asking a guy to come into new rules who might not have a big enough arm to cover a hole. But I will tell you this, the money was so far off. The Freddie thing was, people were upset around here because they said, how could $5 million or $10 million separate him? Why is he crying? He went. That's his decision. With Dansby, the money was so different. Like, we're talking about $50 million in difference. And I don't know about you, but I'm packing my ass up and going to Chicago too for $177 million.
I'm in the win. I'm giving them this. I'm in the win. Yeah. But okay, they didn't. But they didn't come off as like $100 million. They said, okay, it's $100 million. We got take it or leave it. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, if you're not going to come off it, meet him halfway. Go 130. One go 140. I mean, he'd have probably taken the home down. Just got to stay in Atlanta.
So I had him in studio during the off season, and at the very end, we had him in for about an hour and a half, and I've gotten to know him well. And I literally, as the show was ending, you can find it somewhere, I think, again on YouTube. I slid him a piece of paper, and I just said, "Would this get the job done? I'll take a little less." But I never gave the number out, and I still haven't given the number out. The shortstop market got a little bit crazy, no doubt about it. All ships will rise once that stuff starts happening. And he was the fourth one to sign, so it even worked out well for him. Where Freddie and his people, and by the way, it's the same agent, same agency group, which is, and a lot of people were wondering if Dansby would keep them after the Freddie stuff. He was like, yeah, that's Freddie's deal, that's not mine. Dansby's a self-empowerment guy. He's a really interesting young guy, reads a lot, into self-help. He went up to see Mike Krzyzewski a number of times, loves Duke basketball, loves basketball maybe more than baseball. But he's very interested in the process of things. So, they played it well because last man standing with at least two teams that needed a shortstop, three if you include the Braves. So he ended up getting paid. Now, the big thing is who takes over. Look, you and I have been around this a long time. Leadership can be overrated. I don't need a guy to flip a table and then all of a sudden anoint him a leader. That's not leading. That's just throwing chicken salad around a clubhouse at that point.
Yeah, right.
It's hard for a pitcher to be a leader. It's just hard because it's an everyday player. They got a guy in Travis d'Arnaud who's been a catcher for a long time. I think he picks it up. Austin Riley, Matt Olson, two really good third base, first base corner guys. They're not very vocal, but I think they're respected. So it's not, I come in and I tell you, today we play hard. It doesn't work in baseball. Too many games. What has to happen, Reg, this is it. Will somebody walk over to a guy or two privately? It's not really done in this big clubhouse, stand on a pool table, everybody dig me because I'm about to drop some pearls. I think it's more about, can you go to a guy who's scuffling a little bit? Let's figure it out. What can I do to help? Right, I think that's what baseball is more now. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why, and you've been around long enough. I've been covering baseball for 30 years. What will never happen again is the way that I used to cover baseball. I would sit around and have a couple of beers with Tom Glavine and Chipper Jones at the end of the game. That don't happen anymore. Clubhouses used to be full pre-game if you wanted to do some media stuff. That don't happen anymore. My conversations with guys will be, if I text you, can you give me 5 minutes? I'll see you on the field. I'll see you in the dugout. The clubhouse is not really the place because these buildings are so nice. They have, I don't want to say places to hide, but they have places to hide. They don't have to be at their chair anymore. And the game isn't talked about the way players, media, the way that it used to be. So we don't have as much information as to who is that guy. But I think that guy is different now. That guy is the guy that can go to individuals as opposed to collectively, even on a 7-game losing streak. Come on, guys, we're better than this. That stuff doesn't fly anymore. We're not living in that bad B movie world where somebody gets up and says something and everybody goes running through a wall and you win 8 games in a row. It just doesn't happen that way anymore.
Let me ask you this. The game's going to be different this year. Major League Baseball will be substantially different. You got the pitch clock. We've got bigger bases. The shifts being banned, redo schedule. How do you see this impacting the game? And just give me your thoughts on what you think about some of the rules, specifically the shift.
Yeah, so what they're trying to do more than anything else, and this has been because they've watched the numbers go down, they call it a 3-outcome game. Strikeout, walk, home run. So you would see over a period of time, just a couple of years, 2,000 less base runners in a season. 2,000. It's a lot of base runners. And what they're trying to get back to is more actual baseball during a baseball game. Look, the NFL is king. And if you don't believe the NFL is king, I'll give you the number that will tell you it's king. In an NFL football game, there's about 11 minutes of football. Now, these games take over 3 hours, but there's 11 minutes of line of scrimmage play. Nobody cares. In baseball, downtime, dead time, everybody's caring. Everybody just says, we got to get the games under 3 hours. We got to do this. Look, the only way to get games shorter, and I know this for a fact, the only way to get the game shorter is to play 7-inning games. You get Dale Murphy in the studio, arguably a Hall of Famer. And I said something to him. I said, Dale, you want to change it? Look, you bastardized the numbers anyway with the steroid era. Pitchers go 5 and dive. Nobody's throwing complete games. Nobody's throwing 7 innings anymore. So let's just change the game. Let's be radical. Make them 7-inning games. And he looked at me and said, I can't believe you're saying that. And he knows that I'm sort of old school. 2 days later, he's back out west. He calls me. He says, I've been thinking about it. 7-inning games is the only way to get the game shorter. And if we're not going to care about 300 wins anymore, because that ain't happening, if we all of a sudden don't care if a guy hits 300 home runs, which used to be a big number, what's the difference? We've changed the game anyway. Now, I'm not telling you it should happen. I'm telling you the way that you can really make it happen. Games are shorter, more impactful. Starting pitchers only pitching 5 innings in a 7-inning game means that you're as valuable as you used to be. If you throw 5 innings now, 6 innings now, all you're doing is taxing a bullpen. It's a 26-man roster, and that finally changed a few years ago. You carry 13 pitchers. So I've got a number for you. In 2019, the Seattle Mariners used 42 pitchers over the course of one season. 42 pitchers. The Baltimore Orioles in 1973 used 12 for an entire season. So you're paying a starting pitcher $20, $25, $30 million, and I'm hoping he gives me 6 innings. The numbers are wacky. It's a terrible business thing because now I need more guys in my bullpen, and I will burn them out. It is a churn and burn. It's like running backs in the NFL. Hey, man, right. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep handing you the football, and when you're done in 4 and 5 years, John, that's the way bullpen guys are now. They will churn and burn these guys, and they go, I'll find another one. Can't find a starting pitcher, but I'll find bullpen guys. So the game is different. They want more baseball. They literally want pitch clock is let's speed it up. But what they're doing now is maybe bigger bases. Nobody wanted to bunt. Nobody wanted to steal because you don't give up an at-bat. You don't, because I can hit a home run or that guy might walk me. Why am I laying down a bunt? Why am I attempting to steal to get thrown out? They just want more baseball action. They want to take the 3 outcomes down and make it a game where without the shifts, you see infielders making plays. You see more bang-bang plays at first base. And left-handed hitters, quite honestly, more than anybody else, don't get screwed because somebody's playing short right field.
Wow. You're on with the PR man, the coach talking ball on the BallFather Podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Chris, let me ask you this. My favorite team, as you and I know. I'm sorry.
No, listen, roll with it.
The one thing that I think about, I thought about the year Aaron Judge had last year, and you've covered this league for 30 years. You know baseball. What are the chances of a guy having that kind of year again, repeating that year? Very low, 50%. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's a unicorn type season, no doubt about it. The big thing will be, can you pitch around him more than ever? Now, look, I watched the Bonds, and I don't care. Look, I've had guys tell me, as big a jerk as you're going to get, 3 lockers, didn't want to talk to his own teammates. But at the end of the day, I would have let him come in his uniform and leave in his uniform for that type of production. He'd see one pitch a night, and if Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and other guys have told me, oh my God, that guy, you make one mistake. He wasn't that good. He was that great. Judge is probably, unless he has good protection behind him, unless this more baseball plays to him, you can throw around him a little bit. He just needs 1, maybe 2. The big thing now is, like even with the shifts, a lot of pitchers, back end guys, back end of the rotation, not the aces, they kind of, Reg, don't know where it's going.
Right.
It used to be that you go, I set up and boom, hit the glove. There's a lot less of hitting the glove. Now guys throw it harder. Guys have a secondary pitch, and that's sort of the out. But Aaron Judge was up. That's freakish. Do I think it could happen again? No. I think repeatable years, like when you've been Mike Trout, and the biggest knock on Mike Trout is nobody gets to see him in October. You got baseball's best player, and he's out, one playoff series in 10 years. That's bad for the game, which is why you expand playoffs, which is why you allow more teams to have a chance at 88 wins to go be in the postseason. They want more action. It's more money, and again, we know the business. The bottom line is follow the bouncing dollar sign, and you'll end up with the reason for most things. They think that this version of baseball, more offense, will attract more eyes, and maybe teams that haven't been as good with a couple of stars might find themselves at least competing in the last 15 days to get to the postseason.
Talk to me a little bit about your club a little bit. Okay, so I'm a huge fan of Snit. I like what he's doing. I like his approach. The players seem to say good things about him. What are their prospects? The Mets are right on their heels. Braves won 101 games last year. The Mets won, I think, 99? No, they won 101 too, didn't they?
They did.
They won 101 too. And they spent almost $500 million this offseason. Was it 498.1, some sick number? Have the Mets closed the gap, and are there whispers or people who are in your position and other guys, other baseball scribes like yourself, do you think the Mets have closed the gap?
Yeah, look, as long as Verlander's healthy. Justin Verlander, speaking of freaks, so there are 6 guys in baseball, 6, that have 150 or more wins. That's it. There's 18 guys that have 100. It's harder to get wins now than ever before because you're out of games sooner. If there's 4 inning games left, you can leave with a lead, and all of a sudden the bullpen doesn't hold it. There's enough offense with home runs where, hey, you're in line to get a win, but you don't. Verlander's one of those guys, along with Max Scherzer, that are freaks. It's strange to watch a guy come off of Tommy John. I can make an argument in the last 25 years, the greatest trade in baseball was him going to Houston. And he won 2 World Series. He pays for himself. And now Steve Cohen is picking up the 39-year-old version of him for $40 million a year. And you kind of go, well, if I had the money, it makes sense. I talked about leaders. It's tough to be a leader when you're a starting pitcher. Max Scherzer is the hardest worker I've ever seen on offense. Ever. 30 years. That guy's running. He does his work like nobody I've seen. Verlander's the same guy. Leadership can fall to those 2 guys because they've been there, done it. And I mean been there, done it. You got good players on the Mets. Pete Alonso's going to eventually get paid. Lindor woke up with Schultz there. Do I think it's closer? Listen, you win 101 games and you add Justin Verlander. You should be fine. I think Philadelphia is sneaky good when you get Trey Turner and add him to the list. This division's going to be, look, here's the good news for all these teams, right? You don't play the balanced schedule now means you play people in your division less. And when you're in a good division, that's good news. I don't want to play the Mets that many times. I don't want to play the Phillies that many times. If I can go play Kansas City and Pittsburgh, throw those on my schedule. So in a division that's got 3 really good baseball teams. Right. By the way, Craig Kimbrell, who used to be here, is in Philadelphia now, trying to resuscitate what was a Hall of Fame career, and it's sort of gone off the tracks. If he comes back, they're an even better team. So this division not having to play 19 games against each other and beat the crap out of each other, it's better for all these teams to not have to play that many inside their own.
Let me ask you about the Astros. My youngest brother and I argue. He's a huge Astros fan.
Yeah.
They won the Commissioner's Trophy last year. Arguably one of the best lineups ever. What do you think happens to them this year?
So Verlander being gone is a thing. They have been ahead of the analytics curve. Look, we can do the trash can jokes, and we can,
right.
take away the trophy from 17.
Yeah.
Look, I'm all up for it. I got in trouble because I know a couple of people in that organization, and I said in 2018, opening day, they should have made the owner of that team hand that trophy back to the commissioner at home plate, but not during January and February. I want you to have to bring it out. It burns me that trophy is sitting in their building. But I thought it would have been, here, we have to give it back. It's sort of like the Reggie Bush.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, we're going to take it from you. Well, I think baseball should have taken it away from the public. But they're better at analytics than anybody. And what's crazy is, we talked about Eric Young for a second, one of the first base coach for the Braves. The guy who just got named general manager came from Atlanta, Dana Brown. And here's the crazy thing. Eric Young and Dana Brown played together in high school, one town over from me. When I was in college, I scouted them for my high school coach because I thought I was going to be a coach. I thought I was going to teach and coach. So I went and watched somewhere in a box somewhere. I don't know. It might be buried. It might be in a landfill in New Jersey. I have a report on Dana Brown and Eric Young as players, and we laugh about that. So Dana Brown's the new general manager. He came out of scouting. He's not a bean counter. He's a personnel guy. In a world where baseball's got a lot of bean counters as general managers, this guy came out of scouting for a long time. He waited a long time to get his shot as a general manager. So I think they even got better in their front office.
What about, Alvarez? He, big impact.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just what's the ceiling for him, and how good does he have a chance to be an MVP player for them?
It's crazy to think that you lose Carlos Correa and you didn't drop a step. And they went and got Jose Altuve too, who I think he's been a heck of a player, but he plays for the White Sox, so nobody really cared. I think he's a really good addition, clubhouse-wise. Their analytics are going to tell you the days that maybe he doesn't swing the bat 4 times, how they're going to use him. Dusty certainly was a great hire. At the end of the day, I don't root for Houston, but I was happy Dusty Baker got his World Series. That was the only thing missing on his Sunday, so I'm happy for that. He's earned that right to be talked about that way. And to go into the Hall of Fame without the World Series probably would have felt a little bit empty for him. So I'm glad of that. They're a very well-run. But think about this. They won the World Series and fired their general manager because ownership at times makes it a little bit who's in charge here.
Right.
I don't know if that's ever happened before. He didn't leave on his own. They could say it was a mutual decision, but nobody leaves anything that good. Yeah.
No, they asked him to leave. Let's switch back to the Yankees just for a second here.
Yeah.
They're starting the season. They've got a lot of young guys. There's 2 holes on that roster. One of them's at shortstop, and the other one's in left field. And they didn't pull the trigger on Brian.
Same for the Braves, by the way. It's the same thing for the Braves because the Braves, they've got $27 million invested in Eddie Rosario and a guy that you don't even want around. It can't be, legitimately, I'm paying $18 million, $37 million for the next 2 years to Marcell Ozuna. And here's the thing. They said he's in shape. It's another thing I got called to the principal's office for. I said, if he's 5 pounds overweight, 5 pounds going into spring training, I'm saying go home. Go home and lose the 5 pounds. Don't come back until you do. I've been told that that's not a situation, but there's $27 million invested in left field. One guy should never have a glove on. The other guy had an eye surgery last year, and shortstop. So very similar to the Yankees, who didn't get Trey Turner, who didn't get Dansby Swanson, who didn't get Carlos Correa. And all of a sudden, for as good as they can be, and you want Stanton to come back and be healthy, Torres, all these things that could happen. Carlos Rodon was a really good pickup for them, and him and Garrett Cole are fine. But in a world where, what is your offense going to do in the postseason? Correct. They were terrible last year in the postseason.
Okay. Josh Donaldson, you don't want him around. Okay. You don't want him around. But you paid him. You're on the hook for $30 million for Aaron Hicks. You're on the hook for $27 million for Josh Donaldson. What do you do? I mean, what do you do? Good with the glove, terrible with the bat. He's done. He can't play anymore. So
you're going to need you're going to need your pitching to be. Look, the problem is the back end of the rotation could be good if it stays healthy. But am I really going to get 30 starts out of 5 guys? It doesn't seem possible. So if you don't, Aaron Judge will get pitched around. You need Stanton probably to come back and to be sort of a wrecking. And it might not be every day, but when he gets on a heater, you better run him for 4 and 5 games to take some pressure off your bullpen and to take some pressure off your starting pitching at the back end of the rotation. Fun to watch. What's nice about them is, I think it's the Yankees, Duke, the Lakers, Notre Dame. I think they're the ones that nobody sits on the fence. Right. Like you either love them or you hate them.
The Cowboys. Add the Cowboys.
Cowboys, right. So anybody that you hate, I'll hate watch. I'll root against a couple of teams. I'll hate watch. I'm not overly proud. Why are you watching? Because I want to see them lose. The Yankees are good for baseball in that regard. And the big story is now with Steve Cohen with the Mets, spending what he spent. Now can you actually say it's a 2-team town and the team in Queens might be better than the Yankees, which will bring every Met fan who's had to shut up about not winning a World Series since '86 out of the woodwork, and they'll have 9 relatives with them.
And they'll be loud. And they'll be really loud.
Stevie in Queens. Yeah, Stevie in Queens is going to have a blast if they're better than the Yankees.
It's interesting. Someone said this the other day, and I was driving, and I heard someone out on Sirius Radio, and I was listening to the FAN, and somebody said this. I mean, I almost wrecked the car. I literally almost wrecked my truck. They said, well, Aaron, as bad as Aaron Hicks has been, the fact that the shift no longer exists, the Yankees think that they're going to get, Aaron Hicks to hit 280, 290. I'm like, what? You mean, okay, so what you're telling me that a guy who has been awful is now going to be able to raise his batting average 80 points? It's not going to happen.
So here's the funny one, because he played for the Yankees when he really took it in the shorts. Ryan McCann, who's here, catcher for the Braves, goes to the Yankees. There's never been a guy in the history of the game that suffered from the shift more than him. He'd hit screaming one-hoppers to that guy playing in right field, that short fielder, and they throw him out at first by 5 feet. And I talked to him. He said, now they're going to do it? Now they're going to take away the shift? Because his option was to hit a home run because he couldn't go up. I always told him, look, you've got a good enough swing. Go the other way. The problem is it's so inside fastball. What am I going to do? I'm going to go. And these one-hoppers. So, look, 291 was the average with ball in play the last couple of years. But batting averages are like 232. It's the lowest in baseball in forever. Literally, if you're a player, the average was 232. So now we're dealing in like less guys on base, optimism that once they take the shift away, optimism that maybe the running game comes back in and you can't even cheat. Here's the deal so people know, the shift, you have to have 2 on the right side, 2 on the left side. You have to be on the dirt, can't be on the grass. When the pitcher's in his windup. Now, guy goes into his windup, you want to jump out one place, but you still need 2 on the left, 2 on the right. And you can't move your best defensive player around. In other words, if your third baseman used to go play right field so your shortstop could cover everything, that stuff's not happening now. So I'm telling you that might be optimistic on Hicks, but there are people who swear if first basemen have to hold guys and you can't shift, now all of a sudden left-handed hitters have a hole that they haven't had in baseball in 5 and 6 years.
A gigantic hole. Well, that's
it's different, especially if you have to hold runners.
Yeah, they were saying, they said Cashman believes. I mean, Cashman was the guy being quoted. He was talking to MLB.com's Brian Hawk, is the guy who covers the Yankees. He said, we feel like he's going to be 50, 60 points better. And I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, he was just so awful at the plate last year. I'm having trouble believing that they're gonna be able to do that. Talk to me about what you're going. What's the, other than the shortstop? What's the biggest gripe of Braves fans entering the 2023 season? Yeah,
you're only griping because you're not really sure if you're a World Series winning team. Max Fried is the big story around here. He just lost his arbitration case. And when Freeman goes out the window, Swanson goes out the window. Dave Roberts called him the best lefty in baseball last year, which is something. He's still got one more year of arbitration, and Braves fans are wondering, as he's turning 30 in another year, will they pony up for him? Alex Anthopoulos isn't a big, long year guy for pitchers. And at 30, are they going to let him run it out and then go, we'll see if we can keep him or not? I don't think Max Fried is tied to Atlanta. He's a Los Angeles kid. The Dodgers, at a certain point when Kershaw goes away and something else will happen, they'll have money. Do I think Max Fried is here in 3 years? I don't. I think he's gone, but I think you're going to get the best out of him for the next 2 to ensure that he gets paid the way that he's supposed to get paid. Carlos Rodon type money certainly is within the realm of possibility. That's the biggest thing around here. And it's like rich man problems. My pitcher that I have for 2 years, am I going to have him for 3 and 4? If that's your the biggest concern is left field and DH. Sean Murphy coming over, by the way, the catcher from Oakland, is a really good pickup for them.
Yeah.
The good news, bad news is the Braves don't really have a minor league system that anybody likes. Here's the good news: nobody cares. It's like the iceberg. What do we all care about? The tip that I see. There's a whole lot under the water. I don't care about that until my ship is running into it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. There was a big debate with the Yankees about should they Brian Reynolds from the Pirates, really good left-hand, good player. He apparently reportedly wanted out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Would it have been worth getting rid of Anthony Volk, their shortstops, apparently of the future? Would it have been worth that? What's your thoughts?
So I'm a big guy on prospects for parades. I'll trade prospects for parades. I want the givens.
I like that.
It's probably why I couldn't be a general manager, because I'd be like, yeah, who do you want? I need that guy. Take what you want. I don't know. Some 19-year-old in A-ball, what do I care? You can't go that far, but I'm a big believer in it. If I'm in, I'm pushing my chips in. I don't really care. Nobody cares about it. It's just said it's the iceberg. What do I care about what's under the water? If I don't have a boat that's close to it, who cares? I'm sending everybody away to get things that the back of the baseball card matters more to me.
Well, to me it makes sense because you're entering the season with a gigantic hole in left field when there was a guy who was screaming come out and the Pittsburgh wanted to play ball. Pittsburgh says, hey, Give us him. Give us a prospect pitcher, and we'll give you Reynolds. We'll let you have it. And
yeah. So here's the thing, though, Reg. I will say this though, and again, I'd have to adjust my thinking. You need the $700,000 player if you're going to have the $35 million player. Let's take Steve Cohen's money out of it. Most teams will tell you, I need to have value for my contracts. Who's playing above my contract? Who's got a better chance to play above their contract? The guy who's making $740,000 as opposed to the guy who's making $24 million who's now older. So that's the dilemma. You know, Vaughn Grissom for $740,000. Is Dansby Swanson, if I do the quick math, is Dansby Swanson 23 times better than him? That was the Donaldson deal here with Austin Riley. Is that guy 28 times better than Austin Riley? And at a certain point, you go from a dollar point of view, he's not. So the $700,000 guy, the bullpen guy, who's the sixth inning guy, I'd like to not pay everybody. And that's sometimes because Reynolds is going to get paid. Again, it's the Yankees. We're not supposed to be talking about money. But there is something to, I have value from the guys that I'm still paying nothing to.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be interesting. What's the most impressive thing about going down when you first get to camp? I mean, you're going Monday. What do you look forward to doing, and what's it going to be like for you when you get there?
So here's the evolution of me. Where I used to be tight with players, and I go drinking or have dinner with players. Now it's the coaching staff. I've gotten older now, where I went through 4-5 iterations. I watched the Frank Coors and the McCanns, and then the Freemans and Haywards, and I was with Chipper and Javi in '95. The big thing with me now is my in is more with the coaches. Snit and I relate to each other. Walt Weiss and I relate to each other. Eric Young and I. And they give me flat out truth. So what I love doing, and we had guys come in off season, we have them come into the studio during the season. Pitching coach, Seitzer, the hitting coach, Rick Kranitz, the pitching coach. My in is more with them.
Yeah.
So we're doing a round table one night down there next week. Where we're all going to go to dinner and we'll just talk baseball. You'll get more of that with those guys than you will with the younger players now. It's not a knock on them, but my mindset is even a little bit different. So my association is with coaches.
Walt Weiss is great, okay? Walt Weiss is great. He's a great coach. Eric Young, Washington, Snit. I mean, that to me, you get it straight from the horse's mouth. That's better.
And here's the thing. There really aren't any turds in the clubhouse. In the NFL, Rich McKay was the guy who told me, if I have 53 choir boys, we're all looking for work. I just can't have a Pied Piper blank hole. In baseball, it's travel. It's more than football even. So you got to be around. They've decided. But the coaching staff will tell these guys the truth. Put it down today. Don't take your swings. Pick it up today. Get moving. My relationships with coaches is really, I've enjoyed the evolution. If I'm going to get old and I got to deal with being old and walking a little slower and having teenage daughters and they're leaving the house, at least I know that I have an outlet. My outlet is I go over to the building early, or I call up one of these guys and they say, it sucks getting old sometimes.
Hey, man, listen, thank you so much for joining us. We like to sort of pick your brain and check in with you, from time to time during baseball season. And we love having you on as our analyst, man. We appreciate it.
Miss you. I'm glad we get a chance to do this anytime, any place. Yeah, we'll go through anything that you want. I'm available.
I'll be in touch with you. Thanks, Chris. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Have a great one. Be good.